What's up my loves, my name is Paige, this is Paige with the Page, and today we're going to be doing my December wrap up. Hello my darlings, welcome to the next video in my Pages of Chaos series where I'm wrapping up 2023 and telling you all the good shit. So I do want to do a final wrap up, and then the next video or the video after will be my year in review with all of my stats and everything like that. This is just focusing on December, and it feels so weird to have concluded 2023. I'm filming this on the 2nd of January and it's surreal. It is utterly surreal that we are here. And December was a very weird reading month for me. I'm not mad at it, but it was definitely one of the slower months, and I'll talk about why. But first, let's dive into the stats. So in the month of December, I read 9 books, which is on par for when I slump, I read 9 books. I'm also not surprised. Anytime I've read less in 2023 was when my mum was up, because I want to be talking with her, not reading. And I love it. I love getting to spend time with her. So I'm happy to not prioritize reading as much. I still do. And when she came up, we had a really cute moment where I was listening to an audiobook, and then I paused it, slowed it down, and we listened to a couple of the letters together. So it's not like I don't read when she's here, but I definitely prioritize spending time with her. And then with Christmas, everyone being up, it's just a fun time, but my reading does take back seat occasionally. So I did read 9 books overall. I also DNF'd 1. And if you're new to my channel, I don't DNF. I will DNF series now, but actual books, when I'm partway through, it doesn't happen. And the fact that I made the active choice to do it, I am super proud of. Kara, I hope you're proud of me. I haven't included any of the stats for the DNF in here, so the pages that I read or anything like that. So the 9 books that I did complete was a total of 2,806 pages, which equated to 90 pages per day. That was literally my lowest pages per day. Normally I might be reading bigger things, but that's fine. It's funny that on the 31st I managed to read a 500-page book. Anyway, this breaks down to 312 pages per book as the average length. We had 2 that were in the hundreds, 2 that were in the 200s page range, 3 in the 300s, 1 in the 400s, and 1 in the 500s. So definitely kept it to the smaller things this month, but that's totally fine. My average rating was a 4.33. I read 1 erotica, 5 fantasy, 1 historical, 1 non-fiction, and 1 paranormal. In terms of format, I read 2 audiobooks. I read 1 physically. I did the audiobook ebook combination of 2 and the audio physical for 4. In terms of age range, I read 3 middle grade, 4 young adult, 1 new adult, and 1 adult. In terms of rating, I had 2 3.5 stars, 2 4 stars, 2 4.5 stars, and 3 5 stars. I read 2 standalones. I started 1 new series. I continued in 3 series, and I completed off 2 series, so very happy with that. My biggest book was The Amber Spyglass by Philip Pullman, and my smallest was Letters from Father Christmas by J.R.R. Tolkien. My listening hours was 25.55, and in terms of publication year, I had 1 that was released in 1976, 1 released in 1986, 1 released in the 2000s, 1 released between 2006 and 2010, 1 released between 2016 and 2020, and 4 2022 releases. With all of those stats aside, let's dive into the books. And the first one I want to talk about is my DNF. And guys, the struggle, I was trying so hard to get through this and I just couldn't. So come at me, it's fine. I am not a highbrow reader. I am fully appreciative of the fact that the books that I have given 5 stars, for me to DNF this is just very reflective of my current brain capacity. And that is Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami. I'm not unhauling this, it is going back on Asher shelves, but I have removed it from my TBR. I have marked it as read because it is a DNF, but I'm not putting any of the stats in or anything like that. It's just on Goodreads and Storygraph that I wanted to flag it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I think I got 150 pages in, give or take, and I was listening to the audiobook and I just didn't care. I didn't like it. The way that the protagonist was talking and thinking about women made me so uncomfortable. And I know going into Murakami to brace myself for it, I was not prepared. I was not prepared enough for just how it made me feel. And that's totally fine. I fully appreciate that this is going to be great for a lot of people. I think my sister loves Murakami. I couldn't do it. I was putting myself in a slump. I failed Bookemon epically. I failed Clear Ur Sht epically because this fucking book put me in a reading slump because I was trying to think smart and she didn't have enough brain cells. The relief I felt DNFing this was astronomical, and I get it. I understand some of the critique, but I also am fully aware of the fact that I'm not smart enough about this and I don't give enough of a shit. So it's DNF, it's going back on Ash's shelf and off of my TBR. I really hope my sister doesn't watch my videos anymore. And AJ, if you do, I'm so sorry. I didn't bring it up at Christmas because I didn't want to ruin your Christmas. I'm fully aware of the fact that everyone understands that everyone has different reading tastes, and so it's not going to be everybody's vibe, but that was some serious shit that yeah, nah. It's not for me. I will try Murakami again. I still have them on my TBR, but not Kafka. I think I might want to lean more towards their Norwegian wood style writing, maybe. I don't know. But we will endeavour, just maybe not soon. Alright, on to the books that I managed to complete. The first book that I finished was Phoenix by Ian McGuire, and I gave this 3.5 stars. I'm so happy to have finished the series, but oh damn! Wow, this is just a nostalgia trip and a half. It is not good quality. It's very Vampire Diaries sort of vibes. I don't recommend this series if you don't have the nostalgic attached to it, but goddamn, I had fun reading these. They don't have audiobooks, so I had to read it physically, and I fly through them. I think it took me 2 days to get through it, and every step of the way I'm like, this is not good. This whole series has been such a conflict for me because I loved the first one, and I can acknowledge that it's shit. The way that grief is dealt with is not healthy, but I still had fun. I think for the second one, I was hoping to go in and love it as much as the first one, and that didn't happen. So by the time I got to book 4, my expectations were adjusted accordingly to just go in and enjoy the ride. It was just a very interesting experience, and I had a good time, but I'm quite happy that I've managed to finish off this series. This was also the last series that I had on my list, a series I could remember reading before I got Goodreads. It's there, it's done, it's marked off. I feel very accomplished with my life. Next up, we had The Smell of Other People's Houses by Bonnie Sue Hitchcock, and this was what won for my Book All Revisited. And I gave this 4.5 stars. It definitely surprised me in the fact that I just went in not knowing anything about it. I knew it was a coming of age, but the way that the story interwove together was really heartwarming. I think the topics were dealt in such a intriguing way for me, but they didn't just have that extra little bit of depth. It was more than surface level explored, but it wasn't far from it. And because we're following 4 different perspectives and they all have their own really hard-hitting issue, I love seeing that. I just wish we could have got a little bit more, which is why it wasn't a 5-star. But I still found this a really beautiful story, and considering that it's a historical fiction because it's set in the 1970s, that feels weird to say. That's contemporary. The actual time setting of it though felt very accurate. It didn't feel modern day, but it also didn't feel out of place in the fact that it was over 50 years ago. I'm gonna go have an existential crisis about that fact, but I really enjoyed this and I think it is beautifully written. So very happy to have picked this up. Apologies if you can hear the rain. It is just started up again and it's been storming all day. The next book that I read, I'm so happy I picked it up because it worked for literally every single challenge I needed to check off for the end of the year except for one, which just blows my mind, and that's Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. And I gave this 5 fucking stars. I adored this. I was not prepared for how much I was going to love this. I know that it's Jacqueline from Jaxie Jax reads as one of her favorite books ever. Like, they've got the Folio Society version. I know that it is in a lot of hearts just amazing. But I also thought it was a little bit because of the Studio Ghibli film, not necessarily the book itself, and that was my bad because this is great. I can understand them being 2 separate mediums, and Ash and I are definitely going to watch the Studio Ghibli Ghibli film, and I'm very excited for that. But this, I just had merged it in my head as something that it wasn't. And I'm so glad it just blew me out of the water, because I had this as the anime sort of more Japanese inspired, but it's British. It is so fucking British, it's not funny. And I loved it. I loved the curmudgeon-y kind of old lady characters. I loved the fucking soft little man. This was so much fun. And it was exactly what I needed through December and the vibes that I needed. And it was just so fucking wholesome. And I loved it. I utterly adored everything about this. And I'm so happy that Jacqueline gifted this to me, and I picked it up and had a wonderful time. Ash and I were talking about it all the time that I was reading it, being like, oh this and oh that. It was a really lovely experience, and I think if you've fallen out of love with middle grade or just not picking it up as often, I feel like this would be a good one if you do want to dip your toe back in, just to see if it's still something that you're interested in reading, because I think it is a very classical feel. It is olden style, but it's just so fun and whimsical, and I adored it. Next up, I read The Gifts of Bindus by Caroline O'Donoghue, and this is the second in the All Our Hidden Gifts series. And I gave this a 3.5. I don't know what it was about this, but I really adored All Our Hidden Gifts, but our protagonist just was insufferable throughout this. It just didn't have that same spark. I loved that they were coming into their own magics and sort of figuring out more about themselves and the magic that is prevalent within the world. There was some fucking gross ass scenes. There was a lot of mystery to it as well. I did predict something that happened which I don't think you should have been able to, which I was like, oh okay, yeah, but it was still fun. It definitely has those magical vibes that I adored in the first one. I just think it sort of lost itself for a moment, and so I didn't have as much fun with it, but I did like that it upped the stakes. It made things feel more real. Not in our world, but it was very centralized to Ireland and their focus for the first book, whereas this really expanded it out, and you could see that the shit that's going on is happening all over the world, which I found very fascinating. So I'm very excited to get to the third book, and I feel like this was second book syndrome, and we'll see where the rest of the series goes. But it definitely was one of those books that you're like, oh, you have so much potential, I can feel it, but this ain't it, but it's not bad. So then you're like, ah. But I'm definitely going to finish off the trilogy and let you know how I get along with the third book, to be able to wrap it up and say if the series is worth it or not, because the first one, absolutely amazing. This one, we were leaning a little bit too hard into Angus Thongs and full frontal snogging territory, so take that what you will. And then I lost my ability to physically read because I was trying to get through the Murakami. I just picked up a slew of different audiobooks. The first one was Letters from Father Christmas by J.R.R. Tolkien, and I gave this 5 stars. I went to read this last year and then ended up picking up the L. Frank Baum Christmas one, and I'm so happy I read it this year. So this was an audiobook that I was listening to, and it had little music, and I had my headphones in and I was sitting next to Mum and she could hear it, so she was like singing along to the little tune, and so I decided to take my earphones out, reduce the speed, and listen to it together. Not all of it, I think it was just a couple of letters, but it was so sweet. This really embodied for me a love of Christmas, and I could have a really nice discussion with Mum about Tolkien and the actual effort he put into writing for his kids. The fact that these things exist, I love it, and I love the idea of being able to write something so entertaining that your kids can keep as keepsakes. And I'm so happy that we do have this in the world, because they are just so lovely and hilarious, and that lightheartedness and positive just hilarity that was similar to Howl's Moving Castle. I, again, was not prepared to enjoy this as much as I did. I just didn't know anything about it going in, but it's literally just every year, couple of years, this letter from Father Christmas to these kids, and just talking about any adventures that might have happened in the year. And it was just, amazing. I had so much fun, and it was just a really nice experience having the music going and Mum and I just being able to share in that. So very happy to have picked that one up. Then the last book that I needed for my challenges was Fire Song by Vashti Hardy, and I gave this a 4.5. I don't feel like it had as much of the adventure side as the first 2 books in the series, and this is the third in the Brightstorm series. I love the twins' dynamics, and this was them definitely getting older. My goodness, am I gonna have to wait for this to stop? So I had a fabulous time with the first 2 books. They were just very adventurous, active, fun middle grades where the sibling relationship was crucial to the development of the story. And in this one, they're starting to separate, and I enjoy it because even though you're twins, you are your own self, so they are allowed to separate and go their own way, and being able to stand up for yourself and speak for that even when it's scary to say something like that to your sibling, I really appreciated it. But they didn't have that same relationship, which I'd come to really adore. So that's why it's a 4.5 rather than a 5-star. But there is so much going on with this series, and it's growing, and I'm just, oh lordy, oh goodness, was not prepared, did not see the twists coming, and I loved that. I love that I'm always surprised. This also does deal a lot with environmentalism and the impact that corporations can have on the environment, which I very much appreciate the way that it's woven in to feel very authentic, but also being able to critique those aspects of society as well. And then the last thing before I managed to pick up another physical book was I Didn't Do the Thing Today by Madeline Dorr, and I gave this a 4 stars. So this is a non-fiction, and the tagline is letting go of productivity guilt. So I find it very, very challenging to not do something in a day, and I will fill my to-do list absolutely chock-a-block and then berate myself or feel bad that I didn't get everything achieved in a day, even though physically not possible. Even if I spent every waking moment doing the things on my to-do list, there is no way some days I'd be able to get it all done. And I really appreciated them just talking about letting go of that guilt, of looking at life through a creative lens and different ways of exploring how to structure your day that doesn't have to be framed in the hustle productivity, because you can be productive, but it doesn't have to be your identity. And I'm definitely in the trap of being, I fall down those productivity rabbit holes. I want to do all the bullet journaling and all the fancy shit, and some days the most productive thing I can do for myself is rest. This was just a nice pickup to hear an Australian talk about their experiences alongside drawing from a whole pool of different people that they've interviewed. One major factor to this not really resonating with me was the fact that they use so many quotes from other people, and I do know that it started as a collection of interviews about people's productivity in their systems and structures and trying to find that perfect balance. Oh my lord in heaven help me. But for me, it got lost with just referencing, ma'am, I am trying to film. Could you please abate for 15-20 more minutes? No? I would really appreciate it. Yeah, this storm isn't abating anytime soon, my apologies. So with this, I feel like they would come up with a really smart sentence that they feel like they thought of all on their own, and then use 5 other people's quotes to confirm that fact, and it didn't feel really that authentic. It was more, here's a collection that these are the ideas that I've pulled from all of these to say, you know, you need to rest, and I struggle with this, so then you should hear that you need to rest too, and these people have said this. So that's why it's a 4 stars. It didn't really have that same resonating tone that I really adore in my non-fictions, especially about something that I definitely fall down the rabbit hole of quite often. But I still feel like it's valuable, and a lot of self-help, I take it in the sense of we've sought out a book for a particular reason, and you're going to take the messages you need at the time that you're reading it. So if it doesn't hit in the same notes, it may be the book, or it might just not be the right time for you to hear this information. So that's how I view it in that. I don't think it's poorly written. I think that it's structured quite nicely, and the different chapters are broken down into those different areas of the traps that we fall into. But overall, it was a 4-star read. The next book that I picked up, I messaged Amy from A-Star Reads being like, hey, I have this list. I need to read 1 more of my unread 2023 hauls to balance myself out. What do you think I should pick up? And I sent them the list, and they're like, you know what would be a great way to finish off the year is to read some Katie Robert. And so I was like, the Kraken Sacrifice, I'm there. Sign me the fuck up. I gave this 5 stars. which I will say, objectively, this was a 4-star read, but I'm a Katie Robert ho. The fact that they can make me enjoy sex scenes that involve tentacles is miraculous, but this is not their strongest work. The Kraken Sacrifice itself, this is probably their lowest for me personally out of their entire backlist, but I still fucking loved it because fuck me, she knows how to write some goddamn beautiful sex scenes. So I will acknowledge my Katie Robert ratings are always very skewed. I can definitely say, hey, this is objectively this, but for me it's a 5-star. And if you would like that going forward, just so you have an idea of where I would actually place things. But goddamn, there are things that this man does that I just, how goddamn. I really appreciated Catalina's character because she is one that strives on being around people, and being locked away due to the parental neglect that she's faced is something really triggering for her. And she is that brash and bold character, but she really has so much depth and just strives being around people. And her growth in this I really adored. Thane is an interesting one. He does things that he does, and goddamn, and I feel like his backstory is really lovely to hear, but I still feel like he is an absolute fucking idiot when it comes to his actions. You just, man, you can't be doing stupid shit like that. I think my frustration for Thane would be where the way that he treats her, it doesn't make sense in the context that it is. So you can see everyone else around him going, this ain't smart, man, this ain't a good idea, and he's just like, what, yeah, cool, whatever, let's just fucking vibe with this bitch and I'm just gonna fuck her silly. Or what was it? I'll fuck the brat out, right out of you. Like, there are quite a few content warnings for this as well. The thing that really makes me adore Katie Robert is the fact that this book has vomit and it has tentacle porn in it, and I still love it. Because if we've learnt anything about me, I can't stand vomit in books, I can't stand vomit in general, that's why I'm in therapy, but also I can't stand slimy descriptions, I can't stand the tentacle fishy sort of fucking thing. Explain yourself. The way that she gets around it is by not writing things as slimy, like that, plain and simple. This man is not a slimy beast. He might be part octopus squid man, but he is not slimy, so I can deal. Like, his tentacle sucker things were not slimy. I fucking love Katie Robert, I'm so bad. And then I sent them a message being like, well shit, I have started 2021 series and I've only finished 19. Here's a list. So of course, Amy, being the darling that they are, picked a 548 page book, which is The Amber Spyglass by Philip Pullman. I am actually really happy that I finished off this trilogy though this year, and I gave this 4 stars. I think this is definitely a really solid conclusion to this trilogy. I found myself very engaged as we were going along, and I find that for quite a few of these similar veined stories I can find myself zoning out, but a lot of this was just so easy to fly through. I did read it all on the 31st and I didn't really get bored. There were times that I was like, I want to stop reading, I want to stop having noise in my ears, but we'll just keep going along, and got through it. And then the next interesting thing happened. I also really liked Lyra's sass and her determinate will, but also the way that one element was shifted, but not in a way that made me feel it was trying to hit you over the head with the moral and ethics of it all. The series I was thinking of is Inkheart, and the shifting characters to the 3rd book, I felt like they've always stayed true to form. Some of the later end scenes I was like, oh, this is awkward. I've gone from young adult to older teenagers, and I liked that progression. I like when they grow up. I just wasn't prepared for it. I just appreciated all the characters. I really liked the conclusion, and I feel like there is so much more to this world that is done in such unique and interesting ways. So a very solid conclusion to my 2023 reading, and a solid conclusion to the end of this trilogy. So this plus 3 audiobooks were the things that I picked up in December, and I'm very chuffed, very happy with this stack. I needed to take it slow, and we did. I didn't end up getting to 3 of the books that I was hoping to, just to finalize off my reading year, but honestly, I am so happy with how 2023 went. I'll talk about it more in my stats and goals review, but 2023's reading year overall has been so odd. I don't know why, but that's just whenever I think back on this year, I'm like, it was odd. It wasn't bad. It definitely wasn't mediocre, but it was one of those ones where I'm shifting in my tastes and not really sure what the fuck I'm doing. So it was interesting, and coming into the last month of the year, I was just like, I just need to finalize off this shit, and then if I don't touch a book, I will be fine. Let me know in the comments, how did your reading go in December? Was there anything that you found has snuck in and become a new favorite, or did you pick up any Christmas stuff that you really enjoyed seasonally? I'm definitely not a seasonal reader, so just picking up the Father Christmas one was really sweet to dip my toe in. But yeah, let me know in the comments below how your December was, how was your conclusion to 2023. And if you like this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more of this mess, feel free to subscribe. I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!